Hey, it's Something Rotten, that musical with musical references that references musicals. And Shakespeare, yeah, that's exactly the one. I don't really remember how I discovered this musical or how it was recommended to me, but when I heard about a musical with this man as Shakespeare, I was all in. No need to say more, you got me a Christian. So I decided to give it a shot. Something Rotten is such a weird musical that doesn't take itself seriously, and I love that. I don't know why people don't talk much about it. The actors are great, the humor is just silly enough, and the music is just awesome. The main focus of the story are the Bottom brothers, two playwrights that are trying to be successful in the Renaissance, and then there's Shakespeare, who's constantly being an absolute snob throughout the musical, but we'll get there. We start off with a hell of an opening number, which does a great job in describing the time, the setting, the characters, and introducing And yes, I will be using footage from that video that is absolutely not a bootleg and just a slime tutorial. After that, we're introduced to Nick and Nigel, two brothers who couldn't be more different from one another. Basically, Nigel's a writer and the most sensitive brother, and while Nick is also a writer, he's a way more ambitious one, and he's the grumpier brother. Both of them are trying to make an autobiographical play and everything is going well, until they get a warning that because Shakespeare's gonna make a new play in the same theater, their play has to be cancelled, unless they get to come up with something original the next day, or else they won't be funded anymore. It's just like the minstrel said in the beginning, if your name is Shakespeare, you're hotter than hot, but if you're any other writer, then you're not, and that pretty much sums up the brother situation. We get to see more of their personalities in the Gotta Hate Shakespeare song, and another one that we'll talk about later on. Like I said, we can see the stark differences between them. While Nigel's a fan of Shakespeare and looks up to him, Nick is bitter about Shakespeare, his plays, and just everything about him, really. Disapproving his brother's admiration for Shakespeare and even hating the small things he does, but mostly how he's way more famous and successful than him. Also, the delivery on that joke.
Why is he the bard? He's a bard, like I'm a bard, you're a bard, he's just one of the bards!
Never fails to make me laugh. Rob McClure is awesome. Before we get to the scene inside their house and listen to one of the best songs in this musical, Nick has a run-in with this very enthusiastic old man. His name is Shylock and he's fucking great. He tells Nick that he wants to help funding his play in a way so entertaining that actually makes McClure break character.
It's the actors, it's a temple to me, I tell you! A temple! My religion is theater!
I don't know who this actor is, but I already adore him. Inside their house, we meet Bea, who's Nick's wife. Nigel tells her about the play being cancelled and she says that she really wants to help them with the money and that she'd even get a job if necessary, but that's all to no use because Nick keeps saying that he has everything under control, which he absolutely does not. With that, we get to the third song, which is Bea expressing how she wants to be seen as more than just a housewife. She wants to be seen as equal. And man, Heidi can sing! Her vocal delivery makes her character's excitement and frustrations for wanting to be heard even clearer. And I love her acting in this musical too. She's nailing her role as Bea, being expressive as ever in this song. Everyone in the musical is kinda like that, but especially Heidi and Rob. Actually, I want to take a moment to say that I had to watch two versions of this musical because of reasons, and in my opinion, Rob makes the character of Nick way more likable by being this cartoonish guy. And this is not a diss on Brian Darcy in any way, no. Brian's Nick is one who's ignorant and always done with everything and everyone, which also fits the story, and I really appreciate how he chooses to play the character in a more grounded approach, which makes Nick feel more realistic, and honestly, does make some of the deliveries even funnier. But the way Rob portrays him fits the humor that the musical has going on, that things are more exaggerated, and it makes Nick seem more like just a silly and clueless husband. Still a little ignorant though. Also, there's a scene in the earlier version of Bea getting the money box from Nick, showing that she is actually stronger than him and he just takes her for granted. It's a perfect way to introduce her character. It's a shame that they cut that out in future versions. Anyways, back to the house, we get the groundbreaking revelation that Nick just hated Shakespeare because he was jealous of him? What? Yeah, that's pretty much obvious from the start, but okay, moving on. Nick gets the money from the box anyway, because like he said, he'd give everything to be the bard, so he gets the brilliant idea to see a soothsayer. And here's where we meet Nostradamus. No, not that one. Actually, this one's,
I'm his nephew, Thomas. Nostradamus, I promise.
This show's so stupid, man. And now Thomas Nostradamus starts singing about musicals. Sorry. he starts singing the famous 7-minute show-stopping number referencing other musicals. The first time I watched this, I was like, oh cool, he just burst into song and they're making fun of musicals, haha. And then it was 7 more minutes of that. But I'm just kidding, it's really well orchestrated and it doesn't drag for that long. The minutes fly by and you don't even notice. Plus they mention Avenue Q, and that's not something I was expecting to see here, but I guess it makes sense because they mention a bajillion Broadway musicals in the same song. Meanwhile, Nigel's still trying to come up with a new idea on his own, and that's when he bumps into Portia, and they fall in love at first sight in a rom-com worthy scene, but they get interrupted by her father Nick, and Portia doesn't get to return the poem that fell when they met. Also, Nick warns Nigel that she's a Puritan and the daughter of Brother Jeremiah, a preacher who's homophobic but kinda gay at the same time.
I say unto thee, these theaters are a scourge upon our land, where men dress as women and kiss other men. I have seen it myself, and it did stiffen my resolve.
You really want that guy giving a speech at your wedding reception?
Yeah, I don't think so. After whatever that was, Nick tells Nigel that he wants to make a musical, and he's totally on board with that idea. Also, look at his little dance in this. John absolutely ate. Anyway, Nick came up with the theme of the musical, the Black Death. Yes, the plague. And I love that this little melody they sing is used throughout the play whenever Nick writes a new musical. And I don't blame him, you know, composing is hard, I've tried it myself. Let's just say it didn't go that well. And while they're trying to convince their patron to fund their play, we have,
And if you continue to promote this filth and debauchery, I will see you tied to a post, begging for mercy, as I give you the rod.
I know I'm putting a lot of clips, but if I let that one slide, I wouldn't forgive myself. That one was wild. Oh, by the way, their patron leaves them after that. On their way back, Nick notices that the man he just bumped into is Bee. And she's dressed like that because the only good jobs available were for men, but I don't know if I call that a good job, because she's just carrying shit around. No, really, she's carrying a bucket of literal bear shit around. At least she got a penny. Back to Nigel, Portia found him again, and they bond over their love for poetry and Shakespeare, and it's really, really cute. Their relationship is all green flags flying around. Honestly, I can relate to Nigel. If I ever see someone with the same specific obsession I have, I will say I loved him in our first interaction. Again, John Cariani's performance is my favorite in this. He plays Nigel as this awkward, passionate little poet, and he's so sweet with Portia and his brother. He just wants poems to write and someone to share his interests. Overall, he's the best character in this musical and no one can change my mind. When their love song ends, Nigel shows Portia a letter that he received from the bard saying that he sent one of his sonnets to Shakespeare but doesn't know if he read it yet. And that's when they're interrupted by a messenger giving him a personal invite from William Shakespeare himself for a recitation in the park, and oh my god. I wouldn't guess a recitation would go that way, but hey, I'm not complaining. And he has background dancers, cause of course he does. I can't with this show. Remember how I said that Shakespeare is a snob and full of himself? Well, we see that here, and it's because everyone treats him like a fucking rock star. And he has a British accent. He's the only one in the whole play. And I know it's because he's supposed to be high and mighty and all that, but kinda caught me off guard. Nick was passing by a park, cause, sure he was, when he saw Bee yet again, humbling him as always, and this time she was working the park recitation. Then she breaks the news to him that she's actually pregnant, which Nostradamus actually predicted, a new life with no teeth. And they, oh my god, look who it is! Forget about them, he's more important. Sherlock comes to tell Nick that his brother's in Shakespeare's after party, and he ends up taking him as his +1. In Shakespeare's party, don't tell me if I said Shakespeare here. In his party, Nigel finally meets him while Portia gets drunk on what she thought was water, and Shakespeare tries to convince Nigel to show him his poems and tell him what his brother's writing right now. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Nick and Shakespeare actually met before. Nigel himself told that to Portia that they were in an acting group together, but he got cut off. And Shakes mentions that in the scene too, before snatching Nigel's notebook out of him. We see even more how much of an asshole he is in this scene, trying to steal his brother's work and acting clueless about it, and he even has a whole crowd of fans backing him up, so the bottoms can't even warn someone about it. People think that Shakespeare's just looking through their stuff to help because, you know, he's the bard, of course he can do that. But Nick gets Nigel's notebook in time before the party gets interrupted by the Puritans. Brother Jeremiah takes Portia out of there and Nigel follows them, leaving Nick alone with Shylock, and he finally gives in to his offer to fund the musical. In order to figure out the theme, he goes up to Nostradamus again and asks what Shakespeare's greatest play is gonna be, and he says...
Omelet!
You get it? Omelet. Hamlet. Ham. Omelet. Nick gets way too excited about Omelet and starts to sing about his fantasy where everyone praises him for his writing and he's way bigger than Shakespeare in a song called, and I'm not kidding, Bottom's Gonna Be on Top. Yeah, Nick. Keep telling yourself that. We've all been there. Anyway, he gets in a face-off with Milk Shakespeare. No, that sounded better in my head. I'm gonna stop that bit. Moving on. He gets in a tap-dancing face-off with Shakespeare. I never thought I'd say those words, but here we are. And Nick wins, by the way. Of course he does. It's his fantasy. Great at one finale. 10 out of 10. Would watch it again. And I did. 4 times. Now we open Act 2 with what I thought would just be a reprise of the first song, but it's actually the reason I found out I'm gay. That song is just Shakespeare saying that he's carrying the writer industry in his back, which, yeah, he's not wrong. But he's so tired. Look at him, guys. He can't pee without being interrupted by a fan asking for an autograph. He has his schedule full of interviews, and he can't even write something without getting bored in the process. Because being famous is so much more fun than writing, you know? His life is hard, you guys. Give him a break. He also has a lot of bitches wanting a piece of him. God, okay, I know why Nick hates this guy so much. Jesus Christ. But jokes aside, Christian gave everything in his role. I always think that when I actually hate a character, that means that the actor is doing a good job, and that's absolutely right in this case. Oh, and he also finds out about Nick seeing a soothsayer and plagiarizing him, so he disguises himself or whatever. I don't think that's going to be important anyway. Back in the Bottom's house, Nick is trying to write the musical with Nostradamus, but he keeps getting a lot of musicals mixed up. The Lion King, Phantom of the Opera, Fiddler on the Roof, and oh my god, he's here again! Shylock is funding the play, and he got the job that he deserved. Well, was it illegal to have a Jewish patron? Yes, but he is the executive producer here. Okay, they didn't have a name for that before, but it's what he is. Give my man a break. Oh, there's a little melody again. So Nick starts explaining the play to Shylock and Nigel because nobody knows what this man's yapping about, but he gives the good old excuse that the eggs are a metaphor for the human life and the frying pan is his mind.
This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs.
In the middle of all this, a familiar guy shows up and reveals that his name is Toby Belch and he's a big fan of the Bottom Brothers and immediately gets a role in the play. Then Nigel runs out to ride along, but it turns out he's actually meeting up with Portia to read her a poem, and they end up doing this... I don't even know how to describe this scene, honestly.
We're dawn between, yet none could dim our light nor love divine. Astronomers, behold these starry eyes. Forbidden love that secret hearts be loud. If laws of man are secret love denies, the laws of nature doesn't love loud. If you talk about who's done to have to take life alone. Oh, I finished too quickly.
Poor Nigel. And I'm sorry to break this to you guys, but a musical isn't the best song in this musical. This one is. I think it's mostly because Nigel and Portia is the cutest Broadway couple ever, and maybe I'm biased, but also it's because this song got stuck in my head since the first time I saw this. That was 2 years ago. And also, there's this. Wait a second, is that... Oh my god, it's Barry from the Prom! That makes sense, that's why this guy ate. They convince brother Jeremiah and Nick that their love is worth fighting for, and everything gets solved with the power of love. Except that, no, that wasn't real, unfortunately. Barry from the Prom says that he's gonna lock Portia up in the church tower like fucking Rapunzel. I know it's the Renaissance and he's religious and she's a woman, but that's cruel, come on. Then we get to hear Nigel's little theme as he laments, a thing that I haven't mentioned before because I didn't know where to fit that, but I really had to mention it because it's adorable and it only shows up when he's passionate about something. Like in Gotta Hate Shakespeare, we see the light, and now in this scene. Did I mention that Nigel's my favorite? He's my favorite. Anyway, this inspires him to write the actual Hamlet.
And then he descends into madness, and then he dies, and everyone dies, and the whole stage is covered in bodies, and blood, and death, and the rest is silence.
But Nick doesn't like that at all, and this makes the brothers go into an argument with an absolute banger of a song, with a rhythm that matches the actual dialogue being spoken. I love when musicals do that, goddamn. The other actors on Nigel's side agreeing with this to Diane himself be true, but Nick still wants to write Omelette instead of actually being true to himself, and Toby is also on his side, kinda. He's just backing him up because he's trying to get Nigel's play. The whole thing gets 10 times worse when Nigel refuses to help in writing Omelette, so in an outburst, Nick tells that he's tired of always carrying Nigel and that's why he didn't want to write their autobiographical play in the first place. Because he feels like he's still carrying Nigel and being the responsible one, which in my opinion is not much of a reason for not wanting to do the play, since he's also refusing to do the other one, and he just hurt his brother's feelings for a soothsayer reading that may or may not be right, and oh, there he goes again. Too bad, because they're sold out, and Omelette will be the single greatest play ever written, so joke's on him, right? Wait, speaking of Nigel, where'd he go? Oh, come on! Will takes his play saying that it's full of cliches like,
To be or not to be, what a piece of work is man.
But he tries to encourage Nigel to write Omelette with Nick, to his own selfish purposes. But it only really works when B comes up to him and gives him a heart-to-heart, saying that despite everything Nick is doing, acting strange, taking money from the money box, yes, of course she noticed that, he still loves them, and they still love him, and that's just a phase because he's overwhelmed by the musical, and that's understandable. The day of the musical comes and it opens with a little song and this good piece of dialogue.
The Nazis have arrived! The Nazis.
Which is not something I thought I'd be hearing in a musical, but that's the tamest thing we saw here, to be honest. Also, there's this banger of a song about omelettes with Nostradamus as the ghost of the prince's father with his freaking mask, tap dancing chefs and eggs. I mean, I never thought I'd be vibing so hard at that, but here we are. I also love this little dance here, specifically when Brian does it, because Nick was so serious the entire play, and now he's in a musical singing a goofy song about omelettes. It's so great. The show goes well until it gets interrupted by Toby. No, sorry.
Toby or not Toby? That is the question.
Oh my god, turns out that was important after all! So Shakespeare reveals to the audience about the soothsayer thing and the fact that Omelette isn't original. Well, except it is. Well, it's not, but it is. But it's not. His family gets upset with his lies, rightly so, and this whole thing actually gets them in court, with B geniusly disguised as a lawyer representing them and pleading temporary insanity for Nick. As the consequences of his actions dawn on him, he regrets what he did. A little late in the story, but hey, better late than never. After Nick apologizes to them, B calls Shakespeare as a witness, and he demands justice, saying that if he ever makes a play about this, he wouldn't want the judge to look like a fool, so he offers that instead of beheading them, they should have their lives spared and be banished from England. Also, Portia runs away with them, even making her dad swear for the first time.
God damn it!
So they all get banished and take musicals with them, yes, the concept, and finally make their autobiographical musical, The Bottom Brothers, in a big finale song that ties everything together. Actually, by the time I'm editing this, I realized that I didn't put it on the script that the original name for this play was Two Brothers, One Cornwall, and that's hilarious to me. I don't know what to say. The show is absolute chaos from start to finish. The humor is so weird and stupid, but that's what makes the play funny and endearing at the same time. Okay, I wouldn't call it stupid because a lot of the dialogue is clever and well written. A lot of things are subtle too, like the parallels between Hamlet and Ophelia and Nigel's plot with Portia, with both women suffering religious exile. Or just a small joke like when Shakespeare learns Portia's name and says he likes it as a reference to his character in The Merchant of Venice. Everything in this play is so good, from the jokes to the performances and the details, but I can't even describe this on my own. It's gonna be even better if you just watch it for yourself. If you haven't yet, I'm begging you to. I swear you won't regret it. Am I biased? Maybe, maybe not. I guess I can pretty much say that the real Omelette was the friends we made along the way. But seriously, if you're still here, first of all, I'm so proud of you for listening to me yapping about this musical for all this time. You're really patient. And second, thank you so much for watching so far. If you disagree with me or realize I forgot about something, please comment below. I really want to hear your thoughts about the musical and the video. See you guys next time. Bye!
Also, just a quick FYI, everyone thinks you're a fraud.